Located in Elkridge, Maryland, the Belmont Estate and Historic Park is a beautiful site with a complex history. Originally a tract of land known as Moore's Morning Choice, Caleb Dorsey Sr. purchased this land from Mordecai Moore at an unknown date and then sold it to his son, Caleb Dorsey Jr., in 1732. Originally built as a private manor for the Dorseys around 1738, Belmont is one of the earliest forced labor farmstead/plantation homes in Howard County. While it is unclear exactly how many enslaved persons used to reside and labor at Belmont, we do know that records indicate that Edward Dorsey, upon his passing in 1799, held 36 enslaved people as a part of his estate. Additionally, a federal slave census shows that roughly 60 years later, his grandson, Charles Hanson, held 10 enslaved persons as a part of the estate. Over the years, Belmont was owned by a number of Dorsey descendants and other significant organizations, such as the Smithsonian Institution, the American Chemical Society, and Howard Community College. Belmont was eventually sold to the Howard County government in June 2012. Currently, the site is managed by the Howard County Department of Recreation and Parks and adjoins Patapsco Valley State Park. Today, we have Fred Dorsey, a descendant of the Dorsey family and a historic preservationist, here to share some of the history he's uncovered regarding the Belmont Estate. So Fred, what is your connection to the Belmont Estate?
I'm a descendant of the Dorsey family here in Maryland, and I became very interested in my family's history, genealogy, and interest in Dorsey homes here in Howard County.
How did you become interested in the history of the Belmont Estate?
I became interested in the history of the Belmont Estate at the time of my retirement. At that point, I became involved with historic preservation here in Howard County and was also pursuing my family's history and genealogy. I became more involved once I had an understanding of the early Belmont history. And at the time of the sale of Belmont and the purchase by the Department of Recreation, I worked with the Department of Recreation in increasing my study of the history of Belmont. And to that point, I was developing historic tours to offer to the public. At the time, the Department of Recreation and Parks held their quarterly public open houses of Belmont.
What is your favorite story about Belmont's history?
My favorite story about Belmont history relates to Billy Barton, the racehorse. The story of Billy Barton is a story of disappointment, trust, and redemption. Billy Barton was a fairly good racehorse here in Maryland, accumulating over several years around $43,000 in wins. However, he was a very undisciplined horse, particularly in the stable area, where he would kick at the other horses and the stable workers. And more importantly, at the starting line, he would disrupt the whole starting procedures. And it reached a pinnacle where the Racing Commission decided to ban Billy from racing. Now, Howard Bruce, the owner of Belmont, was also a horse breeder. And he had heard of Billy and decided that Billy had potential to be a steeplechase horse. So Howard purchased Billy, brought him back here to Belmont, and started his training. Initially, Billy Barton was used in the various fox hunts that Howard Bruce had here, but he then graduated to excelling in steeplechasing to the point that here in Maryland and Virginia and surrounding areas, he was constantly winning the different hunt cups. And one year he won both the Maryland and Virginia Hunt Cup at the same time. He had achieved such good working as a steeplechase horse that in 1928, Howard decided to enter him in the Grand National race in Aintree, England. So Howard Bruce gathered his entourage, and Billy Barton boarded a ship headed for England. Instead of housing Billy Barton in steerage, Howard had purchased a stateroom in which he placed Billy Barton for the trip. Once they reached England, Howard Bruce proceeded to go through an extensive training to increase Billy Barton's strength and stamina. At the time of the race, there were 44 horses entered. The course is a long course with many obstacles, fences, brushes, and water canals. True to the Grand National race, it doesn't take long for the number of horses to be reduced because of the obstacles. As Billy Barton and a second horse, Tipperary Tim, came to the last jump, Billy Barton slipped in the mud, throwing the jockey. Jockey jumped back up, mounted Billy Barton, completed the jump, but finished to Tipperary Tim in second place. And it turns out that Tipperary Tim was a 100-to-1 shot. Needless to say, both Billy Barton and Howard Bruce were disappointed. They headed back to Belmont, and Billy Barton continued local races. As the year went on, it came close to the 1929 Grand National race, and Howard Bruce felt that he and also Billy Barton deserved a second chance. So again, they boarded a ship, they headed to England, went through their racing training, and at the time of the race, there were 63 horses entered on a very rainy, misty day. Again, the number of horses started to be reduced. As they got close to the end of the race, Billy Barton was bumped by another horse going over a jump and finished again behind the winning horse. It's interesting that the winning horse this year was also a 100-to-1 shot, which remains a record at the Grand National that two back-to-back winners were 100-to-1 winners. Howard and Billy Barton came back to Belmont. At that point, Howard turned Billy Barton out to the meadows, used him occasionally for some fox hunts, but Billy Barton was content to roam the pastures here in Belmont until he died in 1953.
So, you were involved with ground-penetrating radar investigations at the Belmont site. How did these investigations come about, and what did your survey find?
I became involved with the ground penetration radar study at the Belmont Cemetery as a result of becoming a friend with Dean Cowherd of USDA. Dean came to Belmont several times, giving presentations on what's below the ground at Belmont. And during our association, I happened to mention the Belmont Cemetery, and he called me sometime later, indicating that he had available the ground-penetrating radar equipment and would like to make a visit to Belmont to do a scan of the cemeteries. So Dean came here one morning with the equipment. We first went to the burial area for Billy Barton and his stablemate, JJ. And from there, we went up to the actual Belmont Cemetery. And we laid out lanes that were 18 inches wide, and the length of the cemetery in an area where there were no existing headstones. And we took the GPR equipment and we went up and down each of the lanes. And when we finished that, Dean then was taking the results of the GPR survey, and several days later we received a report from him indicating, in fact, that at the Billy Barton and JJ burial area, there were shown two graves were there. When we got up to the main cemetery, in the wide open area, the survey showed that there were 3 unmarked graves that showed up in the report. Now, of course, it doesn't indicate who was in the graves. It's my understanding that there should be more than 3 people, in addition to who we already know are buried there. But it seems like there will be no way to identify who may be in the unmarked graves and who will be among the missing.
What more would you like to learn about Belmont's history?
I would like to continue gathering personal stories about the families, the children, the different workers that were here, some of the laborers, such as the various number of gardeners that have passed through Belmont. I feel for people to really appreciate Belmont as a home is to understand how people lived and worked here at Belmont, rather than be able to share with people some very cold dates about things that happened in Belmont. I think being able to share personal things, such as how was Christmas done here, how did the grandchildren play hide and seek here at Belmont, I think those things make Belmont, because it's already a special house here in Howard County, I think knowing the personal side of Belmont is far more important for people to appreciate having such a historic structure here in Howard County.
Those interested in visiting the Belmont Estate and Historic Park can find more information on park hours and open houses at the Howard County Department of Recreation and Parks website, shown here on screen. Thanks for watching another Patapsco Short.